Before I tell you every single, satisfying, and meticulously executed detail of how I turned my grandson's casual complaint into a powerful architectural and financial statement, I want to invite you into this space. If you've ever had someone you love, especially a younger generation, subtly dismiss your choices or your personal space with ageist labels like old-fashioned or out of touch, then hit that subscribe button. This channel is a sanctuary for those who are fiercely redefining aging, asserting their autonomy, and proving that the wisest remodels are often those that serve the soul, not just the eye. You won't want to miss seeing how this unfolds. Part 1. The Sanctuary and the Growing Generation. At 70 years old, my townhouse in Chicago's Ukrainian village was more than just a home. It was a living, breathing testament to the profound transformation I had undergone. Every corner of it whispered a story of resilience, of beauty reclaimed, of independence hard-won. The garden, lush and vibrant, mirrored the boundless energy I cultivated within. The interior, an eclectic blend of minimalist modernism and cherished global treasures, a hand-carved mask from Indonesia, a vibrant tapestry from Patagonia, a rustic wooden table crafted in Tuscany, reflected my journey, a continuous, unapologetic unfolding of self. It was a space designed by me, for me, and permeated by a deep sense of peace that nothing, I believed, could shake. My relationships with my adult children, Mark and Emily, were thriving. We had traversed complex terrain, my divorce from David, the painful inheritance disputes with my brothers, the demanding career pivots, the strategic assertion of boundaries against their own entitlement during Emily's pregnancy. All these had, paradoxically, strengthened our bonds, stripping them of superficial expectations and rebuilding them on foundations of genuine respect and understanding. Mark, now a highly successful venture capitalist in Chicago, no longer saw my prudent financial decisions as a quaint hobby. He consulted me on his own, complex investment strategies, respecting my old-fashioned prudence, as he now affectionately called it. Emily, a powerful leader in her own right, genuinely valued my wisdom in navigating the complexities of balancing career and family, a reality David had once scorned. My granddaughter, Clara, now a curious and articulate 10-year-old, filled my life with unadulterated joy. It was into this beautifully curated existence that my eldest grandson, Liam, Mark's son, entered. At 18, Liam was a rising star. He was bright, sharp, fiercely independent, and brimming with the effortless confidence of youth. He had just embarked on his freshman year at Northwestern University here in Chicago, pursuing a passion for film studies. I adored him. I saw in him a nascent brilliance, a keen eye for detail, and a hunger for knowledge that reminded me, subtly, of my own younger self. He would visit me often at my townhouse, his enthusiasm for his university classes spilling over, filling my quiet rooms with vibrant, youthful energy. Our conversations were stimulating. He was genuinely curious about my global travels, fascinated by my adventurous life, and sometimes even impressed by Harper Creative's cutting-edge projects. He loved spending hours in my studio in the West Loop, discussing visual storytelling and digital media. I relished these moments, recognizing a deep creative spark within him. I loved watching him explore his burgeoning artistic talents, observing the passionate intensity with which he approached his film projects. And in line with my long-held philosophy of supporting my children and grandchildren in their authentic pursuits, I was always generous with Liam. Knowing his passion for independent filmmaking, I had quietly established a dedicated Liam's Film Fund, channeling a consistent monthly allowance directly to his student bank account. This wasn't a standard allowance. It was specifically earmarked for his creative endeavors, new camera equipment, editing software licenses, subscriptions to obscure film archives, funds for short film productions. He called it Grandma's Grant, a casual, assumed wellspring of support for his artistic ambitions. It was my way of nurturing his talent, of giving him the freedom to explore, unburdened by financial constraints. My wealth, hard-won through my own radical self-reclamation, was now flowing outwards, supporting the new generation's passions. My townhouse, however, stood as a subtle generational battleground. While its eclectic mix of global treasures, sleek modernist lines, and comfortable, antique pieces reflected my unique, evolving aesthetic, Liam, steeped in the minimalist, ultramodern, sleek digital trends of his generation, saw it differently. He saw history. He saw quietude. He saw what he perceived as old school. My nuanced design choices, my emphasis on comfort, and accumulated stories over stark newness were, to him, simply dated. He, the young purveyor of future trends, saw my home as a relic of a bygone era. My peaceful sanctuary, I realized, was now implicitly being judged by the relentless march of technological innovation and youthful aesthetic preference. And the irony, in its quiet subtlety, began to prick at me. Part 2. The casual judgment and the chilling clarity. The casual dismissals from Liam began subtly, almost imperceptibly, cloaked in the affectionate language of youthful banter. He would compliment a dish I cooked, then add, "But Grandma, you have to get an air fryer. This oven is, like, so old school." Or, admiring a new piece of art, he'd say, "That's cool, Grandma. Very classic. But, you know what would really pop? A digital projection. We could code some generative art for this wall." It was playful, but underlying it was a constant, unspoken comparison to his own sleek, hyper-modern digital world. My aesthetic choices, born from decades of lived experience and discerning taste, were categorized as classic, code for old, or simply not really contemporary. My comfortable antique sofa, a cherished heirloom from my parents that brought me immense comfort, was a bit stuffy. My collection of global tapestries, souvenirs from profound adventures, were busy. My calm, unhurried pace, so antithetical to his generation's relentless speed, was sometimes met with a subtle eye roll or a good-natured but dismissive "Grandma, you just don't get the algorithm." His critiques always seemed to center on my office space, the heart of Harper Creative, located in what was technically my second bedroom. This room, my professional sanctuary, housed my custom-designed workstation, multiple high-resolution monitors, sleek ergonomic furniture, and perfectly organized shelves of art and design books. It was where my vision came to life. Yet to Liam it lacked minimalist functionality. He'd suggest installing transparent screens or smart glass walls to make it more open. He'd gesture vaguely at my carefully curated design books. "You know, Grandma, it's all digital now. Paper is, like, so old school." The phrase, "old school," delivered with a charming, dismissive smile, became his go-to descriptor for anything he considered not perfectly aligned with his generation's rapidly evolving digital aesthetic. My physical space, my cherished sanctuary, the very embodiment of my hard-won peace and individuality, was now implicitly deemed outdated. He wasn't insulting me, not directly. He was simply asserting his own, technologically advanced aesthetic supremacy, kindly informing me that my life, in its very structure, was simply not modern enough. Then came the moment. It was a Saturday afternoon in late January. Chicago was locked in the bitter grip of a deep freeze, but my townhouse was warm and inviting. Liam had come over to finalize details for his spring semester film project, for which Grandma's grant was providing the primary funding. We were in my living room, cozy by the fireplace. I had just brewed a fresh pot of my favorite Ethiopian coffee. He was scrolling through his phone, showing me an inspirational video of a young minimalist architect's studio. "See, Grandma," he exclaimed, his voice bubbling with enthusiasm, "this is what a real creative space looks like. Clean, uncluttered, super functional. Your office, it's nice and all, but it's just so old school. All that stuff. The physical books. The actual paper. It's kind of like stepping into a time capsule. You know? Like, it's not contemporary." He looked up at me, his eyes wide, completely oblivious to the insult. "Maybe you should think about an upgrade, Grandma. For Harper Creative. It would be a total vibe shift. Plus, the money from your next payment would probably be enough to get the cool screens. Just a thought." The words landed on the antique rug with the thud of an unseen weight. Old school. Time capsule. not contemporary. He wasn't just talking about aesthetics.
He was talking about me.
My choices, my journey, my very existence, distilled into a casual dismissal, framed as an outdated aesthetic preference. The same dismissals I'd endured from David, from Ethan Hayes, now delivered by the bright, confident voice of my own beloved grandchild, whom I financially supported. The raw humiliation was absolute. A sudden, sharp coldness shot through me, not a hot flash, but a chilling clarity that settled in my heart. The kind of clarity that preceded my most profound transformations. My physical space, my hard-won sanctuary, was not only judged by him but casually deemed an embarrassment, implicitly affecting his grandma's grant contributions. My emotional thermometer, finely tuned by years of subtle gaslighting and boundary setting, immediately registered the profound disrespect, cloaked though it was in affection and youthful exuberance. In that moment, a profound, unshakable resolution formed in my mind. He thought my house was old school. He thought its purpose was for my quiet, aging contentment, or perhaps even, subtly, a quaint space for his convenient visits.
Fine.
I would remodel it. But I would remodel it for a purpose he could never, in his wildest modern dreams, comprehend. I would turn it into a physical embodiment of a truth he desperately needed to learn, that true innovation doesn't come from aesthetic trends, but from radical purpose. And that every resource I possessed, including the financial allowance he so casually received, was tethered to my choices, my vision, my profound and utterly sovereign definition of contemporary. My grandma's grant, it seemed, was about to be cut, and the ultimate purpose of this renovation would be the education of my discerning young grandson. Part 3. The Blueprint of Revolution. I sat in my beautifully curated living room, a space Liam had just dismissed as old school, sipping my now cold Ethiopian coffee. My initial anger had solidified into a precise, almost exhilarating focus. He thought my house was a relic? Fine. I would transform it into a monument to unconventional purpose. And he, Liam, my beloved, casually entitled grandson, would be the primary, unwitting recipient of its profound lessons. My strategy was audacious, encompassing both the physical transformation of my home and a radical reevaluation of my financial contributions to his life. This wouldn't be a superficial aesthetic upgrade. This would be a foundational shift. My home would no longer simply be my sanctuary. It would become a space dedicated to a new, unexpected, and utterly vital purpose, one that directly countered Liam's youthful dismissal of my perceived obsolescence. The decision was clear. I would convert my entire townhouse into a residential studio and gallery for Wisdom Woven, a nonprofit foundation dedicated to preserving and digitally archiving the stories and crafts of elder artisans from marginalized communities in Chicago. My idea had been brewing for months, a quiet seed planted during my travels. My past career in graphic design, my expertise in digital media, my passion for human stories, and my deep understanding of cultural nuances, all would converge here. It would be a vibrant hub for recording oral histories, digitally archiving disappearing craft techniques, and creating immersive virtual reality exhibitions that brought old-school wisdom to a global, modern audience. My home would become a living museum of living knowledge. This was intensely personal. My battle against David, against corporate ageism, against subtle family entitlement, had always centered on asserting the value of experience over superficial metrics. This project was the ultimate embodiment of that philosophy, and it needed the entirety of my home. My beloved kitchen, my dining room, even parts of my serene living room, they would all be subtly repurposed into recording studios, archival storage, and exhibition spaces. My tranquil townhouse would become a bustling center of intergenerational creative collaboration, and my personal living space would subtly shrink to a comfortable, private suite upstairs. My financial strategy was precise. The renovation would be extensive, costly. My personal funds, though substantial, were already carefully allocated for my continued global travels and my own thriving creative endeavors. This transformation would require new capital, and I knew exactly where to find it. Liam's film fund, Grandma's grant, the seemingly innocuous allowance I had provided him since high school. It totaled a significant amount, meticulously disbursed every month. It was money I had given freely, generously, out of love and a desire to support his burgeoning talent. But it was money tethered to my discretion. It was a current expense flowing from my account, managed by my choices. And now, that flow was about to be redirected. I drafted a meticulous budget for Wisdom Woven, detailing the costs of soundproofing, professional archiving equipment, digital exhibition technology, even modest stipends for the elder artisans. The total sum was precisely equivalent to Liam's expected grant for the next 4 years of his college and postgraduate education. The irony was exquisite. My old-school grandson, inadvertently funding the very project that celebrated old-school wisdom. My first call was not to an architect or a contractor. It was to Mark, my son. His financial pragmatism, tempered now by a profound respect for my independence, made him the perfect confidant. Mark, I began, my voice calm, during our video call. I have a new venture, a nonprofit, Wisdom Woven. It's about digitally archiving and preserving the stories and crafts of elder artisans in Chicago's marginalized communities. I'm converting the townhouse into its headquarters and interactive gallery. It will be a significant undertaking. Mark listened intently, his face unreadable. He knew the scale of my projects. He also knew the profound sentiment behind them. Mom, he finally said, his voice quiet with genuine awe, That's incredible. That's monumental. It's so you. It is, I agreed. And it requires significant funding. So I'm going to redirect Liam's film grant. The funds currently allocated for his projects will now be dedicated entirely to Wisdom Woven. It's a reprioritization of my philanthropic endeavors. He'll need to fund his own projects moving forward. Mark looked shocked. You're cutting Liam's allowance? Mom, he's counting on that. He just bought a new camera lens. He'll be furious. He'll call you old and dramatic again. Precisely, Mark, I said, a grim smile touching my lips. And I'm prepared for it. This is a crucial lesson, not just for him, but for us all. Resources are finite. Choices have consequences. And every home, every dollar, has a purpose defined by its true owner. His casual dismissal of my old-school aesthetics, his unexamined entitlement, has catalyzed this new purpose for my home. And for his education. Consider it the core funding for his next, most important, life project, learning financial self-reliance. My subtle challenge to Liam's generational judgment was about to be architected with cold, financial precision. Part 4. The strategic redirect and the construction of purpose. Mark's initial shock regarding Liam's allowance quickly morphed into a more contemplative silence. His pragmatism, seasoned by his own hard-won lessons about earned versus inherited wealth, allowed him to grasp the profound strategy underlying my decision. He understood that this wasn't about punishment. It was about a deeply deliberate lesson in values, in priorities, in the true cost of unexamined privilege. Mom, he eventually said, his voice soft, I get it. It's a tough lesson for him, but probably one he needs to learn. He's always been too comfortable with things just being provided. I'll talk to him. I'll explain that this isn't personal. It's about your new passion project. And frankly, he paused, a slight smile touching his lips. It's about him realizing you're not an ATM. He's going to be furious, but I think, deep down, he'll understand. Mark, my son, had indeed learned the quiet language of consequence. My preparations for the Wisdom Woven residential studio and gallery proceeded with the same meticulous precision I applied to my corporate rebranding projects. I hired a renowned Chicago architect who specialized in repurposing historic residential spaces for modern nonprofit use. I deliberately chose a woman in her late 40s, someone who understood the nuances of preserving history while embracing innovation. She instantly grasped my vision for blending old-world wisdom with cutting-edge digital archiving. The renovation plans were extensive. My formal dining room, once reserved for David's corporate dinners, would be transformed into a soundproof recording studio for oral histories. My gourmet kitchen, where I had cooked countless meals for my family, would become a multi-purpose space for culinary workshops with elder artisans, equipped with cameras for digital recording. My elegant living room, which Liam had found stuffy, would be re-envisioned as an interactive gallery space featuring holographic projections and virtual reality exhibits of disappearing crafts. My personal living quarters would be discreetly integrated into a self-contained suite on the upper floor, preserving my privacy amidst the future bustle of creative collaboration. My townhouse, once a quiet sanctuary, was about to become a vibrant, living, breathing organism of purpose. The construction phase was planned with careful discretion, minimizing disruption to the neighborhood. Local Chicago contractors, selected for their sensitivity to historical buildings, began the work. The sounds of gentle demolition, of hammers and drills, replaced the quiet hum of my old, predictable life. Dust sheets covered every surface, transforming my elegant home into a creative construction site. Liam, still visiting on weekends, walked through the chaos with a mix of bewilderment and subtle fascination. He saw the old-school elements being torn out, but assumed, with his characteristic youthful arrogance, that it was simply to make the house more contemporary, more aligned with his own aesthetic. He still believed, implicitly, that any change to my home would ultimately serve his comfort, his future, his preferred sense of modernity. He saw renovation. He failed to grasp revolution. My conversations with Liam during this period were laced with a profound, private irony. He would point at a removed wall and say, "See, Grandma? So much better. Much more open. So much more now." I would simply smile, a small, knowing smile. "Yes, darling. Much more open. And much more now. You have no idea." He was commenting on the physical space, while I was orchestrating a transformation of its entire existential purpose. I received updates from Vivian Chong, my financial advisor. Liam's grandma's grant, now the core funding for Wisdom Woven, was transferred directly to the nonprofit's account. This was a significant amount, enough to fund the initial renovation and the first year of the foundation's operations. The financial precision of this pivot, using Liam's former allowance as the seed capital for an enterprise dedicated to preserving old-school knowledge, was a profoundly satisfying private victory. He would benefit from its ultimate purpose, yes, in some indirect, future way. But the direct benefits, the immediate experience of the grant, were no longer his to command. The actual physical transformation of the house progressed rapidly. Walls came down, revealing new lines of sight. New wiring was installed for digital projections. Spaces were reimagined. My cherished antique pieces, once displayed simply for aesthetic pleasure, were carefully cataloged for their future roles in authentic storytelling. My purpose, my focus, my absolute resolve to execute this vision was unwavering. My home, once a container of past expectations, was rapidly transforming into a living embodiment of my future, radically redefined, gloriously unbound. And the lessons it would teach, both Liam and myself, would be profound and utterly invaluable. Part 5. The Unseen Architect of Discomfort. The metamorphosis of my townhouse was swift and undeniable. Within a few months, my elegant home was a full-fledged construction site, yet managed with a quiet efficiency that was a testament to my organizational prowess. Liam, accustomed to the ease of his monthly grandma's grant, continued his regular visits from Northwestern. He walked through the dusty chaos with a mixture of bewilderment and subtle interest, occasionally offering unsolicited advice on modernizing specific architectural elements. He genuinely believed that this extensive remodel was ultimately for my aesthetic benefit, an attempt to align my home with his generation's contemporary taste. He thought he was influencing a transformation. He had no idea he was directly funding a revolution he couldn't comprehend. The tension began subtly, first for him. The usual first-of-the-month ping on his phone, signaling the arrival of his grandma's grant, simply didn't happen. His first response was confusion, then mild irritation.
He texted me.
Hey Grandma, everything okay? Didn't see the deposit for the film fund this month. Maybe just a delay? I replied promptly and with utter neutrality. No delay, darling. All funds meticulously allocated. The Liam's Film Fund has been fully redirected. Happy creating. I hit send, a quiet, almost imperceptible tremor of satisfaction going through me. The language was precise, professional, echoing his own generation's casual jargon. Allocated. Redirected. Nothing emotional. Just facts. His response was immediate. His usual confident emojis were replaced by question marks. Redirected?
To what?
Grandma, what are you talking about? That's my camera money. I allowed a calculated silence before replying. This was his initial moment of discomfort. I wanted him to feel the absence. To wisdom woven, darling. My new venture. It's a foundation dedicated to preserving and archiving the stories and crafts of elder artisans in Chicago. It's a multi-year project requiring significant, consistent funding. It's profoundly now, Liam. It's where all the magic is happening. There was no immediate reply.
He was processing.
He was likely confused. He was accustomed to a conversation framed around his convenience, his needs. This shift, to my unwavering dedication to my passions, was utterly disorienting for him. His next call was to Mark, his dad.
My son.
Mark, of course, had already been fully briefed. Dad. Liam's voice, filtered through Mark's phone, I knew Mark would tell me, was strained, filled with a bewildered indignation. What's going on with Grandma? She just told me she cut off my film fund. For some weird, old people's craft thing. What is that even? Dad, I just put a deposit down on a new lens. I'm going to miss the deadline for the Northwestern Festival. Mark, my pragmatic son, calmly reiterated my position. Liam, Grandma's new project is extremely important to her. It's a non-profit. It requires funding. Your Grandma's grant was always a discretionary gift, not a permanent entitlement. She's simply redirected her philanthropic efforts. You'll need to figure out how to fund your own film projects moving forward. This is part of becoming independent. Liam's protest was immediate and furious. Independent? But Dad, that's what the grant was for. You said I didn't have to worry about money. Grandma's being completely old school about this. She's totally being old and dramatic. The words, so casually deployed to dismiss my previous autonomy, now boomeranged back at him. My calculated generosity, the years of silent, financial support, had been seen not as an investment in his passion, but as a given. His reaction was a profound illustration of his own entitlement. He believed that the resources, simply because they flowed from me, were somehow implicitly his. He couldn't conceive of them being allocated elsewhere. His casual condescension about my home, his judgment of its old-school aesthetic, had been built on a foundation of utterly unexamined privilege. And that foundation was now crumbling. The old and dramatic Grandma, was the silent architect of his profound discomfort. He saw my remodels. He commented on my interior design. But he failed to see that the ultimate remodel was of his own assumptions, and that the ultimate purpose of this transformation was not for his aesthetic approval, but for his profound education. This was a lesson in sovereignty, a lesson in consequences, a lesson in who actually owned the house, and the funds within it. Part 6, The Visible Reckoning and the Crumbling Assumptions. Liam's anger, fueled by the abrupt cessation of his allowance and his father's unwavering support of my decision, reached a crescendo. He descended on my townhouse one afternoon, unannounced, expecting a confrontation. He walked into the midst of the active renovation, past the newly erected, temporary soundproof walls, through the dust-covered, transformed living room, a picture of bewildered indignation. "Grandma," he began, his voice strained, a mix of anger and genuine confusion. "Dad told me about the grant."
Why?
"Why are you doing this?" You know I need that money for my film projects. My new lens. This craft thing you're doing, is it really more important than my future? He gestured wildly around the construction site that was my living room, clearly not comprehending its ultimate purpose. He saw only a disruption, a mess. Liam, I said calmly, emerging from behind a roll of blueprints, my architect beside me. My presence in the midst of renovation, commanding the project, clearly unsettled him. Your future is your own responsibility, darling. My craft thing, as you call it, is a multi-million-dollar nonprofit foundation, Wisdom Woven. It's about preserving the stories and crafts of elder artisans in Chicago. It's an immersive digital archive and gallery. This entire townhouse is being converted into its headquarters. This is a profoundly important venture. His jaw dropped. He looked around the construction site with dawning horror, realizing this was no mere aesthetic remodel.
A
Foundation? In your house? So, all this is for old crafts? And this is why you cut my money? His disbelief was palpable. His subtle dismissal of my chosen passions was now confronting a tangible, monumental reality. Yes, Liam, I confirmed, my voice unwavering. This entire house, which you once deemed old school, is being repurposed for a new, vital mission. Your grandma's grant was always a discretionary gift, flowing from my resources, dictated by my priorities. I am simply redirecting those resources to a project I believe has a far greater impact. One that directly counters the casual dismissal of old-school wisdom, something your generation often values only when it's packaged in a sleek, digital interface. His face paled. He remembered his past comments, his dismissive words about my aesthetic choices, his insistence that paper is old school. The irony was now raw and exposed. The very resources I had so generously provided him were now funding the living rebuttal to his subtle ageism. But Grandma, he sputtered, desperately trying to regain some footing. You always said you'd support my films. This isn't fair. This is totally dramatic. Why are you doing this to me? Dramatic, I repeated, raising an eyebrow. Is it dramatic, darling, for a woman in her 70s to repurpose her own home for a deeply personal, socially conscious mission? Is it dramatic for me to choose to invest my resources in wisdom that honors every generation, not just yours? Is it dramatic to ask a young man to understand that financial support is earned through mutual respect, not assumed through entitlement? Liam's fury evaporated, replaced by a sullen resentment. He realized he had no logical argument. His sense of victimhood clashed violently with the undeniable reality of my sovereign choice. His unexamined assumptions about inherited wealth, about endless, unquestioning maternal provision, were crumbling before his eyes. The house, which he had judged based on its perceived outdatedness, was now revealing its profound, new purpose. And that purpose did not include serving his convenience or his future expectations. His initial anger was quickly absorbed by his mother, Emily, whom he called in a furious torrent of accusations. Emily, who had her own, hard-won lessons about maternal boundaries, listened patiently, but offered no sympathy for Liam's perceived plight. My own children, my daughter, who once tried to appropriate my office for a nursery, now stood as silent, understanding allies. The generational shifts, fueled by my unwavering resolve, were continuing to reshape my family dynamics in profound and powerful ways. The ultimate reclamation of my space was not just physical, it was deeply, fundamentally, existential. Part 7. The Seeds of Self-Reliance. Liam's initial fury gradually morphed into a simmering resentment, but also, slowly, a dawning comprehension of the immutable reality. The grandma's grant was gone. The allowance was redirected. And my house, his perceived family asset, was irrevocably transforming into Wisdom Woven, a vibrant, living monument to old-school knowledge. He had no choice but to adjust. His protestations shifted from outright demands to subtle guilt trips. He would occasionally call, his voice tinged with wistful lamentations about a specific film project he couldn't afford, or a piece of equipment he desperately needed. I listened patiently, offered empathetic silence, and occasionally, pragmatic advice. Liam, I'd say, Northwestern has excellent grants for student filmmakers. Have you looked into those? Or perhaps you could submit your current short film to some festivals. Prize money could be a viable funding source. My advice was always practical, supportive, but utterly devoid of any financial offer. Slowly, reluctantly, he began to follow my guidance. He applied for small grants from the university. He took on paid editing gigs for local businesses, leveraging his nascent skills. He learned to budget his resources, to prioritize his purchases, to truly hustle for his art. His short films, once produced with easy money, now carried the distinct, tenacious quality of earned effort. His ambition, once fueled by passive provision, was now ignited by true, self-reliant purpose. The change was palpable. He was becoming his own architect, not just of his films but of his future. The transformation of my townhouse into Wisdom Woven proceeded beautifully. The renovation was extensive, but purposeful. My personal living space subtly condensed into a beautifully designed, self-contained suite on the upper floor, preserving my privacy amidst the growing bustle below. The ground floor, however, pulsed with a vibrant, new energy. The old dining room, once the silent stage for David's corporate dinners, became a state-of-the-art soundproof recording studio. The living room, which Liam had once deemed stuffy, transformed into an elegant, interactive gallery space, showcasing the immersive digital exhibitions we were creating to share the artisans' stories. My once old-school home, permeated by the scent of fresh wood and digital creativity, was now the epicenter of a truly intergenerational mission. Elder artisans from diverse communities across Chicago, Mexican weavers from Pilsen, African-American quilters from the South Side, Eastern European woodcarvers from the city's older neighborhoods, began to visit. They brought with them a treasure trove of stories, of histories, of intricate craft techniques passed down through generations. My team, composed of brilliant young digital archivists and videographers, passionately worked to capture and digitize their wisdom, creating immersive virtual reality experiences that would share their old-school brilliance with a global audience. My former art studio in the basement, now a state-of-the-art digital lab, buzzed with the quiet hum of servers and the soft clicks of computer mice. My own creative energy, far from being diminished by this redirection, was exponentially amplified. I was not just designing, I was curating, preserving, transforming. I was ensuring that the very old-school knowledge Liam had subtly dismissed would be made powerfully, undeniably, contemporary. The profound irony of Liam's initial catalyst, the subtle dismissal of my traditional home, was infused into every pixel of our revolutionary work. His allowance was now funding the digital immortality of what he had called a time capsule. The wisdom woven into this new purpose was profound, impacting not just the elder artisans, but also the young digital natives on my team. They learned from the patience, the resilience, the deep embodied knowledge of these elders. The dialogue between generations was electric, forging connections that transcended technological divides. My heart swelled with pride watching them, a living testament to the power of bridging divides, of valuing all forms of knowledge. My relationship with Liam, too, began to subtly transform. He was no longer simply receiving funds. He was learning. He was growing. And he was, in his own way, adapting to the radical truth of self-reliance. His anger, once so raw, slowly morphed into a grudging, then a genuine respect. He hadn't asked for the lesson, but he was definitively receiving it. And the house, my house, was its most poignant classroom. Part 8. The blossoming of purpose and the humbling of entitlement. As wisdom woven rapidly gained momentum, the physical transformation of my Ukrainian village townhouse into a dynamic residential studio and gallery became an undeniable testament to its powerful purpose. The discreet external signage, etched in elegant, minimalist typography, belied the bustling, vibrant hub of intergenerational creativity within. Media coverage, initially local, began to expand, with features in the Chicago Tribune, Art and Culture magazine, and even segments on national news channels highlighting our unique mission to bridge traditional craftsmanship with cutting-edge digital archiving. My home, once privately judged, now hummed with public validation. Liam, my grandson, continued his visits, now navigating a living space that had radically shifted from familiar comfort to a buzzing workspace. His expressions were a continuous study in cognitive dissonance. He saw his old-school grandmother, whom he still adored, commanding a team of young digital natives, effortlessly conversing in technical jargon, all within a space that was simultaneously a functional museum, a state-of-the-art recording studio, and a cutting-edge gallery. His perception of contemporary was constantly challenged by the vibrant reality of my dynamic life. His film projects, now entirely self-funded, displayed a new kind of grit, a raw, undeniable quality born of personal effort. He started freelancing for local production companies, working grueling hours, budgeting meticulously, experiencing firsthand the demanding realities of earned income. He produced a compelling short documentary on Chicago street artists, winning a local film festival award. I attended the screening, my heart swelling with immense pride. He was learning. He was growing. He was, finally, truly, understanding the profound truth of self-reliance. His attitude towards old school subtly began to shift. During one visit, he found me meticulously organizing a collection of antique weaving looms for a new exhibition. He watched me carefully. "Grandma," he said, his voice hesitant, almost reflective, "those are pretty complex machines. How do you even understand how they work? It's so different from digital art." "It's all about algorithms, Liam," I'd said, a knowing smile touching my lips. "Just a different kind of code, and usually a much slower one. The wisdom, however, is precisely the same. It takes patience and deep understanding, just like coding." He nodded slowly, a dawning realization in his eyes. He was seeing the inherent sophistication in traditional craftsmanship, the profound intellectual depth in something he had once dismissed as merely old school. My old-fashioned values, my persistent commitment to slow wisdom, were subtly changing his very perception of modern relevance. My initial anger towards his casual condescension had entirely evaporated, replaced by a deep sense of satisfaction and a profound tenderness. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about transformation. His initial dismissiveness, ironically, had propelled me towards a project that was not only personally fulfilling but also had a profound intergenerational impact, benefiting communities, preserving heritage, and most importantly, subtly yet powerfully, educating my beloved grandson. The house, once simply a space, was now a living testament to this truth. It hummed with activity, with laughter, with stories unfolding. It was a bridge between generations, a fusion of ancient wisdom and futuristic vision. My financial allowance, once flowing predictably into Liam's personal account, was now flowing outwards, generating boundless value, teaching countless people about the profound, vibrant relevance of old-school knowledge, digitally preserved. And Liam, my discerning grandson, was becoming a primary witness to its profound, undeniable truth. Part 9. The Power of Purposeful Transformation. I sat in my quiet, private suite on the upper floor of my townhouse, listening to the soft hum of activity below. Laughter, quiet conversations, the subtle whir of digital archiving equipment. My home, once a sanctuary of personal peace, was now a vibrant, living hub of profound purpose. It was 72 now, my body strong, my mind sharp, my spirit utterly unbound. My adventures continued, now balanced with moments of profound connection to my transformed home, my vibrant garden, and the intergenerational community I had meticulously cultivated. My journey had begun with a casual, yet deeply cutting remark. "My house is too old school." Those words, uttered by my beloved grandson, intended to be a light-hearted observation of generational difference, had instead ignited a fire of radical self-reclamation. They force me to confront the lingering subtle expectations that even love could impose, the insidious pressure to conform to someone else's definition of contemporary. I had rejected that script, fiercely and unapologetically. I had transformed my entire home, not just for aesthetic appeal, but for a profound, radical purpose. Wisdom woven. It was a bold, public declaration that old school knowledge was not merely a quaint relic but a living, vital force, deserving of cutting-edge preservation and global recognition. My decision to redirect Liam's allowance, his expected grandma's grant, was not an act of punishment. It was a direct, irrefutable lesson in the true cost of unexamined entitlement and a profound assertion of my own financial sovereignty. This grand undertaking, sparked by a casual dismissal of my personal aesthetic, had become my ultimate act of self-discovery. Menopause, far from being a decline, had been the crucible that forged this profound clarity. It burned away the last vestiges of subtle accommodation, the need for external validation, the quiet compliance that had defined my early life. It stripped away the expectation that my home, my resources, or my choices must fit neatly into someone else's predetermined box. It made me realize that my strength was not in blending in, but in defiantly standing out, transforming my entire existence into a living testament to purposeful vitality. My old-school essence, once judged, was now the very engine of profound innovation. My power, I realized, lay not in what I owned, but in how profoundly I chose to leverage my resources for meaning. It was in the fierce joy of connecting generations, the grounding simplicity of tending my garden, the invigorating challenge of new intellectual pursuits. It was in my unwavering commitment to authenticity, even when it fundamentally challenged the assumptions of those closest to me. My aging, far from being a period of withdrawal, had become a radical unveiling, a rewilding of my spirit, a defiant assertion that the most vibrant chapters of a woman's life often begin when others least expect it. My home, my life, my impact, all had been transformed for a purpose beyond personal aesthetics. All were now gloriously, profoundly unbound. Part 10. The Legacy of a Home Reimagined. I am now 75. My townhouse in Ukrainian village is no longer just my home. It is a globally recognized hub of intergenerational collaboration and digital preservation. Wisdom woven flourishes, attracting scholars, artists, and media from around the world eager to experience its unique blend of ancient craft and cutting-edge technology. My garden, which Liam had once deemed too wild, now offers produce for community workshops and a peaceful haven for visiting artisans. My life, filled with boundless purpose and profound connection, is a testament to the transformative power of reimagining every space, every resource, for its highest good. My relationship with Liam, my grandson, has settled into a new, deeply respectful equilibrium. He no longer complains that my house is old school. Instead, he often visits Wisdom Woven with his own film equipment, collaborating with my team to produce short documentaries on the elder artisans, his own artistic vision now deeply influenced by the profound wisdom he once dismissed. His grandma's grant, once an expected allowance, has transformed into a profound, personal lesson in self-reliance, earning, and the invaluable joy of purposeful work. He credits me openly, admiring my uncompromising vision. He is becoming his own kind of old-school visionary. My children, Mark and Emily, see Liam's growth, and they understand the catalyst. They have witnessed the profound, undeniable truth of my strategic decision. My relationships with them are now built on a bedrock of unwavering respect, a bond strengthened by my courage to teach hard lessons with unwavering love. My granddaughter, Clara, now a thoughtful and independent teenager, brings her friends to Wisdom Woven, proudly introducing me as the coolest grandma ever, who taught her that old is the new cutting edge. This, I realized, is my most profound legacy, not money, not titles, but the living example of unscripted joy, radical purpose, and profound self-sovereignty. The path of my life, once so neatly defined by societal expectations and subtle familial pressures, is now boundless. I am no longer just Linda Harper, the one who shed a marriage or sold a company. I am Linda Harper, the woman who embraced her age as an invitation to radical self-discovery. The silent change was not a diminishment. It was an expansion. It was the quiet, roaring liberation of a spirit finally unleashed, transforming a perceived old-school home into a globally recognized beacon of vibrant, intergenerational purpose. My journey continues unbounded, unscripted, and undeniably, wonderfully mine. And the laughter, stories, and vibrant energy echoing through my reimagined home are the loudest, most joyful testament to a life lived truly, defiantly, for its highest, most authentic purpose. Linda turns to address the camera directly. She is in the newly renovated interactive gallery space of Wisdom Woven in her townhouse. Behind her, a screen displays an immersive digital exhibit of ancient crafts. She radiates quiet confidence and undeniable power, a subtle, serene smile on her face. Has someone you love, especially a younger generation, ever subtly dismissed your choices or your personal space with labels like old-fashioned or out of touch? Did you ever feel their unspoken expectations limiting your vision, defining your space as something less than vital? Tell me your story in the comments below. Let's talk about how we reclaim our homes, our resources, and our very definition of contemporary. Your story of purposeful transformation, of redefining what old school truly means, might be the exact inspiration someone else needs to reimagine their own life. And if you're ready to remodel your own reality, to defy predictable expectations, and convert your passions into profound purpose, make sure you subscribe to The Silent Change After 50. We are building a powerful community where women over 50 are breaking free, defining their own narratives, and proving that the deepest joy often comes from the most unexpected acts of transformation. Join us.